on our website. There we go. And so that if somebody misses it or wants to see something again, it'll be there. I think we put them on our YouTube channel, but anyway, so it'll be available, and that's a good thing. So you can go to our website and actually see the paintings in the jury show and the paintings that are in the art installation. But going in person, seeing art live is really what it's all about. It's it's a different experience and a better experience. First, I want to hit some technical business. I want to ask all of you to make sure your microphones are muted and that you turn off your cameras. All that's important for the quality of our Zoom connection, and so that's important. So, and just going to go over the agenda very briefly. This one will be about an hour. And today, after these little introductions by Linda Mead and myself, we're going to hear from Elizabeth Olsen, and she'll talk about rare and endangered species of plants in New Jersey for about 25 minutes. And then we'll hear from the three artists that were selected to participate. And towards the end, and at the end, you will be able to submit any questions or comments via the chat function on the Zoom. But so we'd love to hear from you then. So I didn't know Liz before, but I know her now. She came to the opening reception and some presented some awards that were given by the Natural Lands Trust. And we're so happy to meet her that she was going to be able to teach us something about botany, and she was excited to see the exhibition. This is it. This is our exhibition. This is our flyer for it and the basic information. I would recommend that if you want to go and see it in person, it's mostly during business hours, but it's best to call the D R Greenway to make sure that somebody will be there when you want to go. So
And
I'm going to
Tess,
introduce.
might we add that there is an event this Sunday?
Oh, that's
Um,
what I was going to say.
oh, well,
Yeah, no,
okay,
you're
go
absolutely
for
right.
it.
Right. So this Sunday is a poetry reading event and a gallery walk. A gallery walk is myself and our treasurer, Joanne Amantia, will be talking about leading people through the gallery and talking about several paintings um, that are hung in the gallery and interesting things about them. Uh, and then the poetry reading, our poems were selected by the leaders of the poetry workshops that we had in the fall. There's going to be some haiku and some longer format poems. And the poets that got selected to read will come and read. And it's a very unique experience and amazing. We did it a couple of years ago, and I was just thrilled at the results. And it's the unexpected, which is the best. But so I want to introduce Liz Olsen. She's a botanist that graduated from Temple University and the University of Maine. She has been working for the New Jersey Natural Heritage Program for about 5 years. Liz has a passion, as you'll see, she has a passion for botany, and she loves to hike with her dog and her husband. I'm not sure if it's in that order. Maybe it's the husband and the dog. I don't know. And I want to thank her for putting together this fun and interesting talk today. And I guarantee you're going to learn something during this. So, Liz?
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction, Tess. I'm really happy to be here, and it was so great to be at the opening reception of the art show. I really enjoyed seeing all of the beautiful artwork. But yeah, as Tess said, my name is Liz Olsen. I work for the Department of Environmental Protection in the Office of Natural Lands Management, and I'm the botanist for the Natural Heritage Program. But I've only been in this role for the past year, although I was in a different role with the program the previous 4 years on a part-time basis. But tonight I want to share with you some stories about the rare plants that we have here in New Jersey. So, but first I wanted to share a little bit about the Natural Heritage Program itself, because I think this is a smaller program and probably not very well known. The New Jersey Natural Heritage Program monitors the status and distribution of rare plant populations statewide. So we gather and manage and analyze all of the data on rare plant species in New Jersey. And our database acts as the repository for documenting all rare plant occurrences. And these might be brand new occurrences or updates to occurrences that have already been known about. This map here shows the many thousands of documented rare plant occurrences statewide. But I acknowledge it's a little bit misleading at this scale. When you zoom out to the level of the state, all of those little purple dots, those icons representing single occurrences, they get larger so you can see them. And so it looks like our whole state is just covered in rare plant occurrences. So a little misleading. But in actuality, if we were to take the area of all of the known rare plant occurrences and smush them all together, then they would actually only occupy a much smaller area, about 33,700 acres, less than the area of Toms River Township. And our state natural heritage program is part of the NatureServe network of natural heritage programs across the US and in Canada as well. NatureServe is the umbrella organization under which all of the state and province natural heritage programs operate. And this is an extremely valuable and important partnership, very valuable to us. We are able to take advantage of all of the services that NatureServe provides with database management and mapping, and just so many benefits that come along with being part of this larger network of wonderful botanists and ecologists across the country. Our state New Jersey Natural Heritage Program is actually quite small. It's really important for us to be tied into this larger network. So our local program is quite small. There are fewer than 10 full-time staff and a lot of part-time staff. And it's just, relative to our neighboring states like Pennsylvania and New York, they have much larger natural heritage programs. So the Natural Heritage Program ranks all of the plant species found in the state according to how rare they are within our state's boundaries. So with S1 being the most rare and S5 being very common, widespread species. We also have other categories for our plants, like SH, H designating historical occurrences or species. So these have not been found in quite some time. There's potential that they could be rediscovered within the state, but currently they have not been found in so long that they're categorized as historical. We have another category of SX, meaning these are species or occurrences that are presumed to be extinct or extirpated within New Jersey. These are species that haven't been found in so long, despite being intensively searched for, and often their habitat is gone as well. So these are presumed to be gone from the state. Through NatureServe, all these species also have global ranks. In addition to a state ranking, they're ranked globally. So this is a similar ranking system, but it considers the the species' entire range. So for example, this is Pine Barrens gentian, and it's ranked S3 here in New Jersey, and it's ranked as a G3. So globally, it's ranked as a 3, being rare and vulnerable. And again, that considers it the species' entire range, not just in a single state. So here in New Jersey, we have over 2,100 native plant species. And when I say native plant species, I specifically mean those species that have evolved and grown naturally here without any human influence. And of those, about 862 we consider rare species. That is about 41% of our flora, of our native flora. So these 862 rare species are our S1, S2, and S3 ranked species. And we have 356 rare species that we categorize as state endangered. That's about 17% of our flora. And these are species that are predominantly ranked S1 and S2. They're our most rare and most critically imperiled species, based on having very few populations and the status of those populations being at risk. The map here shows our rare plant species distributed across the state by county, the number of rare plant species found in each county. So you can see to the north, Sussex and Warren counties have the most rare plant species, followed by Cape May County in the south. And it does make sense when you consider that these are some of the least developed areas of our state. So you'll notice I said we have about 862 rare species. Again, those are S1, S2, and S3. And I didn't want to pin that down precisely because these numbers can shift and change and flux year to year as we maybe recategorize species, and species might be added to a rare category or removed from a rare category. So over the years, these numbers will change. And the best, most exciting reasons for the change in those numbers is when we're able to add species to the list because they're newly discovered in the state. So this was the exciting case for this species, the mid-Atlantic beak sedge. It has been added to our state rare plant list because it had been kind of lumped together with another sedge that was close look-alike. I mean, they look so similar, but thanks to some studies, in 2023, it was determined that mid-Atlantic beak sedge should be split off from its close relative Harper's beak sedge. It turns out Harper's beak sedge has more of a southerly distribution in more southern states. Mid-Atlantic beak sedge occurs here in southern New Jersey and in Delaware and in Virginia. So we were excited to add a species to the rare plant list for a positive reason. As we were able to do for wild bleeding heart, the species was added to our rare plant list because it was rediscovered. So it had been actually ranked as historical for a long time, had not been seen since 1963, but it was rediscovered in the state in 2022. So that ranking went from SH, historical, to S1, because we now had evidence so that it is still here in the state. So it grows in the Delaware Water Gap. Only one occurrence is known on Mount Tammany. And you'll see it growing in this picture here from this sheer cliff face. It doesn't always have to grow from sheer cliffs like this, but it's doing so very happily here. And you might wonder how we got this picture. Well, one of our amazing, strong rock climber hourly employees climbed the cliff face, and you can see her climbing here. And I'm going to zoom in so you can see her taking a picture of the plant right here. So these clumps are the wild bleeding heart, and she's scaling that cliff face, taking a picture of it. So that was an incredible shot, and we're so lucky to have rediscovered this species in our state. So we were also able to add the fern leaf scorpion flower to our rare plant list. This had not been known from New Jersey. It grows, the nearest populations grow over 300 miles to the south in Virginia and West Virginia. But in 2008, one of our state park service employees was hiking and noticed this plant and took some pictures. And it turned out to be new to New Jersey, and this is considered a range expansion. So another really exciting find and a good reason to add a plant to our rare plant list. Other reasons we might add plants to our rare plant list is if they had previously been more common, but are becoming less and less common due to a variety of factors, threats, and disturbances. So that certainly happens as well. One example is this species, hoary puccoon. It's this beautiful plant. And recently it was downlisted or downranked. It had been ranked as SH historical, but it had not been found in the state since 1884. So pretty incredible. It was collected as an herbarium specimen. And that herbarium specimen exists in the Chrysler Herbarium at Rutgers University. So we know this plant was collected from our state, but has not been seen since. And so after all this time, it was determined that this species should be downranked from SH historical to extirpated. So it's removed from our state, rare plant list. So this is an interesting case where you can see from the range map here that this is a very common species across the Midwest, but out here in New Jersey, we're on the edge of the species range. And so this is a common reason why species might be categorized as rare. If we're on the edge of its range, then it's rare in our, geographical or political location, the political boundaries being the state boundaries. So, species like this, they are common in other areas and rare here. And it's interesting to note that species on the edge, plants on the edge of a species range can have really important genetics, important to the genetics of the species diversity. So it is important to try to conserve these species. So again, unfortunately, we had this species had to be downlisted, and that kind of brings me into talking about reasons why species are rare a little bit more thoroughly. So species are rare again because they might be on the edge of range. Also, they might just require a habitat that's not very common. Maybe a certain soil type, like serpentine soils, which are not super common, or some species also might just be inherently rare. They were just never common. And this is kind of something else that's important to recognize, because it really speaks to the natural variations that exist in the abundances of different organisms. Some organisms are just super common everywhere, and others just aren't. And that's just on a spectrum, and it's natural. So rarity can be natural, and it's not always necessarily something that we have to correct for, but we do want to protect those species and try to prevent any declines. So that brings me into reasons why species do decline, all the threats that they face, that our rare species are facing right now, like habitat loss or habitat alteration, elevated deer densities, where overabundant deer are just eating the plants down to the ground. Climate change is another threat that comes with a lot of issues that can affect plant species. Altered disturbance regimes is a threat to our rare plants, specifically and often changes in the fire regime. And invasive species. It's the last one on the list here, but it is probably the greatest threat faced by our rare plants in New Jersey. So these are all the reasons why species might be rare. So now I want to talk about rare species that we have in New Jersey that are globally rare. So again, to rehash, we have over 2,100 native plant species, and of those, 79 are globally rare, but they occur here in New Jersey. And we have 5 federally listed rare species here in New Jersey. So I want to talk in a little bit more detail about those 5 federally listed species. 3 of which are here on this slide. Sea beach amaranth is a really cool plant. It's so tiny, it's so diminutive, just a couple inches tall, but it can have some spread to it. But as you can see here in the picture on the left, it's growing in the sand. It grows on beaches. It grows on the back beach and fore dunes. And so it's really important that we protect our dunes from being driven on or walked on, and, just kind of protect them from being disturbed. If you're ever at the beach and you see wooden posts and string fencing, quote unquote fencing, to protect the back beach, that helps protect rare plants like sea beach amaranth, as well as shorebirds who nest on the sand. So just that simple, inexpensive method of protection has done wonders to bring back a lot of sea beach amaranth to our coastline. The middle species here is sensitive joint vetch, also federally threatened. Sensitive joint vetch is in the pea family, and you might see that little leaf in the center of the picture. It looks like the leaflets are closing in on themselves. That's characteristic of a lot of species in the pea family that get their name. Sensitive is part of the common name because when they're touched, those little leaflets fold up. They're sensitive to touch and they respond by folding in on each other. But sensitive joint vetch grows in southern New Jersey. It grows on riverbanks of tidally influenced rivers in South Jersey. Also threatened by climate change because as sea level rises, the brackish water, the saline water is moving upstream. And we think that sensitive joint vetch, it can tolerate slightly brackish to fresh water, kind of in that zone where the salt water peters out and becomes more fresh water upstream. But as sea level rises, salt water is pushed further upstream, and so sensitive joint vetch seems to be moving further upstream, which is a problem because there isn't necessarily always habitat available further up, and so that's a real threat to sensitive joint vetch. And the third species on this slide is swamp pink, also federally threatened. Swamp pink is so stunning, as you can see here. I never think pictures quite do it justice, but it's like little pink disco balls growing in the understory of Atlantic white cedar swamps in southern New Jersey. And it's so stunning and beautiful. We're very fortunate here in New Jersey. We have a decent amount of this species, although every other state in which it grows, it's not doing so well. And it is also threatened here in New Jersey, mostly due to deer browsing. The other 2 federally listed species, we have small world pogonia. This is federally threatened. This is a beautiful, tiny little orchid in the orchid family. So I put up this map because I wanted to show you. So a few years back, there was a species distribution model created to try to predict new areas where the species might be, where we could search for it. And so that's what this map is showing. Those areas in blue are potential habitat for small world pogonia, where we could go search for it. There's still a lot of ground to cover. And so our agency collaborated with some other agencies and organizations in New York and Virginia to to train conservation scent detection dogs to help assist with these surveys to try to locate new populations of small world pogonia. And so I just think this is such a cool use of conservation dogs. You may have already heard about conservation dogs. Sometimes they're used for wildlife studies to sniff out scat, or they're used to track down invasive species. But they're also used to find occurrences of rare plants. And so this was, I want to say it was fairly successful, to be determined. But the story, the short anecdote of this is that, well, first of all, the dogs were trained, and when they detected the proper scent of small world pogonia, unfortunately, they pounced on it, and they were so excited, and they said, "Here it is." But that would crush the plant. And so they had to backtrack and retrain the dogs. And they said, okay, the dogs will alert and from a distance. And so that was more successful. And to wrap up this short anecdote or the story, the conservation dogs alerted to some areas where they were detecting the scent of small world pogonia. However, there was nothing above ground to see. So you might think that's a failure. However, small world pogonia, as with a lot of orchids, can remain dormant underground for quite a long time. It can just go through these long dormant periods where it's still alive. The underground root structures are still alive, just dormant. And so potentially the dogs were alerting to the scent. They were sensing it underground. And so this is a case where we will have to return to these locations year after year to see if it emerges above ground at those locations. So great partnership with conservation dogs. So finally, the fifth federally listed species I wanted to tell you about that occurs here in New Jersey is the American chaffseed. And this is federally endangered, which is a more important status than threatened. These are only federally endangered plant that exists here in New Jersey. Historically, there were 19 or so known locations where this grew in New Jersey, but all of those locations are now categorized as historical. Only one is known to be, remaining, and it's doing pretty well at that one site. This is a really cool plant. It is a hemiparasite, meaning it's a partial parasite. So you can see from the picture on the right, there's plenty of green leaves. This plant is perfectly able to photosynthesize on its own. However, as a partial parasite, a hemiparasite, it's partially parasitic on its neighboring plants. So underground, the roots will kind of sneak over to its neighboring plant's roots and steal their sugars and their nutrients. So it's a sneaky little guy. But, quite a few plant species do this. It's not alone in that strategy. It's really interesting. And chaffseed has a preferred host. It will take nutrients from neighboring members of the aster family, but it does seem to prefer or do especially well when it can parasitize specifically on Maryland golden aster. So we can use golden aster as kind of an indicator as to where chaffseed might be or where it might do well. And something that's really interesting, part of the federal recovery plan for this species was to attempt seed propagation and experimental outplantings. And so this has been done in New Jersey. There are a few experimental outplanting sites, areas where chaffseed was known to occur in the past. And so those experimental outplantings are doing fairly well. However, this is a species that does need open sunlight. It doesn't do well with a lot of other competition. So those sites need to be maintained yearly with mowing or fire to knock back competing vegetation. So it's certainly taking some work, but there have been some successes with this great species. So those are our 5 federally listed species that occur in New Jersey. Now I want to switch to talking about some of our other state endangered plants. So again, I mentioned this before, but just to say again, about 356 rare plants in New Jersey are categorized as endangered. Again, that's categorized as or ranked as S1 and S2. About 60% of our state endangered plant species only have 1 to 3 occurrences in New Jersey. So that's more than half of the species have very few occurrences. So really important that we look out for those species. 38 of our state endangered species actually have only 1 occurrence in New Jersey. It might occur in other states, but here in New Jersey, only 1 spot. And 5 of our state endangered species are actually endemic to New Jersey, meaning they only occur in New Jersey, nowhere else in the world. So I want to talk about those 5, or 3 of those 5 species next. The first is Nieskeern's beaked rush. This is a state endemic. It's endemic in New Jersey now because it had occurred in Delaware, but it's now extirpated from Delaware. So that's why it is now an endemic to New Jersey. And it occurs across southern New Jersey, across 6 counties. There are over 100 known occurrences. And so even though it's only in New Jersey, it's not doing too bad in New Jersey. There are quite a few occurrences. This is a species that prefers sunny, disturbed sites like roadsides and fire breaks throughout the pine barrens. It germinates really well after a disturbance, but then as the site kind of recovers and more vegetation fills in and the site gets shadier, we find this species starting to decline. So it's not very competitive with other vegetation. Bog asphodel is another state endemic. Like the previous species, it's currently endemic in New Jersey. It had occurred in other states, but it's now extirpated from Delaware and South Carolina. So currently only exists in New Jersey throughout the pine barrens in particular types of wetlands in the pine barrens. It can be locally abundant in some areas where it's found, but there's still definitely concern about this species. It has been in decline due to habitat succession and other hydrological changes. And here's the third and the final of the 5 state endemics I wanted to share with you. This is Hammond's Yellow Spring Beauty. So unlike the previous 2 endemics that had occurred in other states in the past, this species has not been found anywhere else in the world. It is only here in New Jersey. It has not been found anywhere else, so we call it a single site endemic. It occurs in 1 place in northern New Jersey in a specific wetland. So it's really beautiful. It's closely related to other spring beauties with that typically have white flowers with the pink veins that you might see around in the springtime more commonly. But this variety, Hammond's Yellow Spring Beauty, is only known from 1 special site, and it has very specific hydrological requirements. So certainly with climate change and potential developments around the region, it is under threat from changes in hydrology, and always deer are a threat, of course. Okay, so those are all the species that I wanted to share with you tonight. I wanted to wrap up by directing you to or showing you our program's website. We have a lot of really interesting information on our website that you can explore if you're interested. And if you specifically go to clicking on the Natural Heritage Program, you can find information on our rare plants and our rare communities and rare plant profiles, which are a growing list of documents, PDFs that are reports detailing the ecology and biology of all of our rare plant species. So they're not all completed yet, but there's a few hundred so far that are completed and that you can access on our website. You can also find our list of over 800 rare plant species. If you're interested in perusing the whole list and learning more about them. And if you do so, I would very much encourage you to get out there and maybe you'll find some of these rare plants yourself. If you think you found a rare plant, we would love to hear from you. This form is linked on our website. You can, this is what folks use to report sightings of rare plant species. So instructions are pretty clear on the form. It's a PDF that you can fill out online and email it to our office. So we rely on folks' sightings and sending them in to us so we can learn about new occurrences of rare species or updates to already known occurrences. Great. So with that, I wanted to thank you so much for your attention. If you would like some additional information, again, this is our website. You can email our program at natlands@dep.nj.gov. And this also is the website for the New Jersey Natural Lands Trust. And they were so generous to donate some of the prize money for some of the artists awards at the show. So thank you so much.
That's great, Liz. Thank you so much. I think we're all going to pay a little bit more attention to the plants when we take our walks and hikes. Now's the time for the art part of our art and science Zoom. After the reception, Liz and I walked around and we selected paintings that we thought coordinated well with today's science talk. And I want to thank Sandra Peters, Catherine Phillips, and Daniela Toscanini for participating in this event today. So these artists are going to tell you a little bit about themselves and how they came to create their paintings for our This Land is Your Land exhibition. So today, the first person we're going to hear from is Sandra Peters. She's been a member of Garden State for 5 or 6 years, and she was an art teacher in many forms for over 40 years, and she loves gardening and the incredible connectedness of natural things. As an artist, she is inspired by light, and she used different painting techniques to achieve her lovely painting here, Pollinator's Waltz. So Sandra, would you like to tell us a little bit?
Sure. Hello, everybody. So the theme, This Land is Your Land, how did I come about choosing a big fat bee for such a theme? It's kind of a peculiar connection, I guess. As she said, Tess said, I was an art teacher for a really long time. And as I taught art, I always believed that as an art teacher, you teach many subjects. We taught social studies, math, literature, even kinetics are involved. But for me, my most special connection was usually with science. I always felt that science and art were connected through observation. I thought that each year when we had our art festival, it should always be in conjunction with the science fair and to be called Da Vinci Night because of the connection through observation. A scientist usually observes and then tests theories, but an artist responds to their observations more at an emotional level. And so that's where the bee comes in for me. When I read this theme, my head went right to this land, the land around us, and that science connection. So it includes the little creatures that make this land fruitful and abundant with a beautiful variety of plants and food. I guess you would also, people that know me would call me a churchy person. So there's a connection for me. I refer to things like lightning bugs as proof of God because of the variety and entertainment factor of these creatures around us. I think they're just a wonder to watch, and to have a little insect like this that not only pollinates a plant for us, but in some cases can even create things like honey, and even the bee pollen itself can supply us with health benefits. So the connections and the amounts of things that these little creatures provide for us, I think they're fascinating. So why in particular a bee? There's butterflies and all kinds of really cool insects. I wanted to concentrate on pollinators, and I actually submitted two paintings. The other one was a moth at night. I called that one the night shift. But my little bee here, I have felt connected to bees for a long time. I have a friend that I've known for 50 years, and when I met her, I found that her father kept bees. And that was my first introduction to bees up close and personal. And later on, when I was a teacher, we had a lot of assemblies come through school, and my favorite assembly by far every year was the Bee Man. So the Bee Man, who just made this huge impression on me, he would describe to the kids all the different jobs that the various bees had in the hive. And as he went along, he assigned groups of children a bee job, and they were supposed to perform that task repeatedly as he went on to explain the next job. By the end of the assembly, the entire room would be buzzing like a hive with all the little bees doing their assigned jobs. I found it wonderfully visual, and I found that man to be a gifted educator. So once I decided to create a painting in honor of pollinators and I chose a bee, then I had to figure out what kind of bee. So I had to go with these big fat fuzzy bees because they're so much fun to watch when they're in the garden. It just so happens that they don't actually produce honey, but they are prodigious pollinators because of their fur and the way they can gather up the pollen in their little fuzzy bodies. So, and I love watching them. So once I picked, and there's many varieties, these little fat bees, but um, I went with this guy. I had to find one that was backlit. I knew I wanted my bee to be backlit with sunlight because I wanted to accentuate the fuzz on the surface of him and, the light through the wings. And so that required that I go and find pictures of backlit bees and pictures of backlit flowers so that I could pull the whole picture together. Normally I take my own pictures, but this is kind of a hard thing to gather. So I picked this little guy, and I wanted people to be able to see it and kind of hear the buzz on that sunny afternoon when they're flying from flower to flower. And I chose clover as the flower because um, I wanted flowers like this are often considered weeds. Plantain, dandelions, even violets in the yard. We spend a lot of money trying to eradicate them off our lawn so we can have that like nice lush green look. But in fact, I wanted to make the point that they're extremely important for our pollinators to gather pollen. They were just necessary. They're as necessary as the pollinators themselves. And so finally, I chose the title Pollinator's Waltz for my painting because I felt that it added to the mental image of that fuzzy little fat bee bouncing from flower to flower on a sunny afternoon. So this is how I ended up making a fat bee in my painting that's supposed to be about this land is your land. And of course, when I think of that and I think of the song that it came from, I also think of beautiful landscapes and fascinating cityscapes and the people and social implications. But my science heart went right to the little workers that buzz in the background and make this land beautiful and productive and provide variety to our lives. The unsung heroes, the little insects.
That's wonderful, Sandra. Thank you so much. I couldn't agree more. Liz, would you like to add something?
Sure. Yeah, that was really beautiful, Sandra. I love how you describe your art and the meaning behind it. I just wanted to mention, I think I mentioned in my talk, our rare plant profiles, which are documents, detailing the ecology and biology of all of our rare species. Well, not all yet, but a growing number, a couple hundred are posted on our website. So in those rare plant profiles, each one has a section on pollinator dynamics and the important relationships that the specific plant has to different fauna. And so that might interest some folks. And I also just was thinking when Sandra was talking, if folks are interested in more information about pollinators, the Xerces Society is fantastic. It's Xerces, Xerces, Xerces Society. They're nationwide. They're just fantastic. Advocators for understanding like conservation of important insects, or all insects, but especially important pollinators. So
That's great. Thank you so much. So next we'll hear from Catherine Phillips. She's been a member of Garden State Watercolor for 5 or 6 years. And Catherine went on a journey of discovery, I think, that brought her to her painting after the fire. When I first spoke to her about doing this presentation, she was a little concerned that her painting was not beautiful like many of the other paintings in the exhibition. And I assured her that all paintings don't need to be beautiful in a classical sense for them to be important. The painting is unique and interesting, and I think it brings the viewer in to try to understand where it came from and what it's saying. So, Catherine, would you tell us a little bit about how you came to paint after the fire?
I'd love to. Thank you so much for having me. I'm also a retired art teacher. I taught for 38 and a half years. I was on a trip and I was going up in a bus up a mountain and through the rain and the fog. We got over the cloud cover and the sun finally came out and I could see what was outside the windows. And it was these sticks, these burned, charred trunks with these little green poofs on them. And they looked more like sheared poodles than trees. But I was heartened by the fact that despite what happened, there was apparently a fire that ravaged the forest. But the trees were coming back alive and they were growing, but they still seemed to be shouting at us. And they seemed quite angry, despite the fact they were determined to live. So when I saw this assignment here, this land is our land, to me it means the earth is our land. And I don't think that nature has naturalistic borders, and we have the same problems everywhere in the world. 2 years ago, there was that horrible fire in Canada, and that terrible orange smoke blew down. I've never seen anything like that in my life, and I'm old. It smelled terrible. It was acrid. It was orangey. It blotted out the sun. And no place is safe from fires. I had wanted to go to Yellowstone 2 summers ago, and my sister-in-law said, "You can't go now in the summertime. California's burning, and it will obscure all the mountains, and you'll get there, and you won't be able to see anything." And you hear about people burning forests on purpose, like the Amazon, to make the land ready for other uses, instead of for the river and so forth. So fire is an important topic for me, and it's terrifying, but this is ultimately a painting about hope, because the trees are regenerating themselves. And so that's why I painted it. When I painted it, I included some India ink in with the paint because it was grittier and it had more viscosity to it, and it looked a little more charred to me. So it's not a pretty painting, but it is about hope.
I love it. Thank you so much. That's great, and I couldn't agree more. Liz, would you like to add something here?
sure. Catherine, I really like your painting. I remember being struck by it at the opening when I was there in person. I think it's great. It does have a beauty to it. Like Tess said, it's maybe not the classic what we think of what comes to mind, but it has a beauty to it. Definitely the starkness. So it makes me think. Just wanted to mention, a lot of our rare plant species here in New Jersey require fire as a natural disturbance regime, especially in the Pine Barrens. And so certainly, there are just super severe destructive fires. They're kind of like out of context as to what would have historically occurred before humans came along and mucked up nature. But there are still also, regenerating fires. And as you show, Catherine, like a lot of plant species like these trees have had adaptations to deal with fire, and they can resprout and come back in different ways. So yeah, like you say, yeah, it's beautiful. There is hope even after some really terrible fires.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Our last artist tonight is Daniela Toscanini. She is relatively new to Garden State Watercolor. She joined us last year for a plein air event we had in Seaside Heights, and ever since then, she jumped in with both feet, and she impresses us with her enthusiasm and helpfulness every time we see her. So she was already familiar with the beauty of this particular wetland environment, but she researched some essential functions of these ecosystems and the plants within them. So, Daniela, could you tell us a little bit of how you came to paint Barnegat wetlands, please?
Gosh. Hello. Am I here? Hello?
Yes, you are.
Hello, I'm Daniela. I'm originally from New York, and then I moved here 22 years ago to Jersey, which became my home, and I love New Jersey. So, how I came across painting this, my brother and I, this is our favorite place to kayak. And we used to spend our summers in Tom's River, if you're familiar with it, in Barnegat Bay. And we would just kayak in these small little nooks and crannies in the wetlands there. And I just found it amazing how the light just hit the water there. And it was just so peaceful there. And you get to see all the wildlife there. And my brother and I was like always say how quiet it is there, and we'd be like, "Oh, this is great! This is so quiet. Escape the chaotic life everybody has, with family and stuff." And what I liked was the reflections and the stillness of the water. So when I painted that, I just was like, "Oh, I want to catch that reflection that I saw with the sun hitting the reeds." And the reflections in the water, it was just amazing. And then like the dead branches like floating on the water there, it was just amazing. And I painted this in gouache. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. It's almost like watercolor, but it's opaque. So I did some translucent washes and some opaque in the reeds and stuff. And I sealed it with the Dorland's wax to give it a shine to it. But it just was amazing to see these landscapes. You would see the ospreys and ducks and see the scarlet tangers. It was just amazing to just be out there. And as an artist, to see this stuff, to paint it, it's just amazing. And I try to capture it. Sometimes you can't capture it, but it's amazing to try to mimic nature. And it's just, our state is beautiful. So we have so many places to paint, and this is like one of our favorite spots to paint. And my brother's like, "Oh, you want to see a great spot?" And we went on one of those solar powered boats, and we found this spot. It was just amazing. And I created this painting to showcase how beautiful Barnegat Bay, the wetlands there. It just shows. It's a personal connection for my brother and I. It's like, we spent our childhood there, just boating, fishing in Barnegat Bay. It's just amazing. And for everybody, it's, the land is so important to protect because it's a place where, as a child, you play, a place to find peace, even pray. It's so important to see, like, showcase the beauty of our landscapes, and that as artists, that's what we're showing in art to the world. The landscape, what we see every day. Let's see. Sorry.
That's great. No, that's exactly right. And I think when we were talking that about the connection with this land is your land,
Yeah.
how important these it is to conserve these wetlands because there a lot of species lay their eggs there.
Yeah,
The
nursery. It's a
fish and the yes, and for flooding, they help control flooding and
100%.
right, all that good stuff. So
Yeah,
thank
a lot,
you.
yeah, you
Thank
would see a lot of animals having families there. You would see the birds just flying overhead. It was just amazing to see that. And it is true, it does protect against the flooding. So it's so important that we take care of our lands. And a lot of times you'll see trash in there, and it's very sad to see that. And and
yeah,
and I think it's great as artists that we show that how beautiful it is, that we should keep it this way, and preserve,
exactly right.
protect it. Because it,
Great, thank you.
you know,
Thank you so much. Excellent. Very nice, very nice. Liz, would you like to add something to Catherine's little talk?
Daniela,
I mean
yeah,
to Daniela's talk. I'm sorry,
Daniela, yeah,
Daniela's.
it's gorgeous, Daniela. I was just looking at your painting here, and I love how you see more of the land in the reflection of the water. Like,
yes, it was
that's so cool how you did that. Yeah.
because of the boat level. It was just we were
Uh-huh.
yeah. So the kayak is like solar powered, so we could get really into the shallow waters in the back there. It was just amazing to see that.
Yeah, yeah, it does look so peaceful, as you said. Yeah, I would just add, I was just thinking about all of the plants that depend on wetlands that have are in a wetland habitat. A lot of our rare plant species live in wetlands, specifically like salt marshes. At least 10 that I could find of our rare plant species grow specifically in our salt marshes. Um, but yeah, it's really special places. Definitely have their own suite of threats that they're facing. Climate change and non-native invasives like Phragmites are encroaching, and so anything we can do to protect these really special places is so important. And yeah, gorgeous painting.
Thank you so much.
Okay, ladies, thank you so much. I think we've come to the end. We have a last slide. Here we go.
Oh, look at that.
There is our portraits of us, we the people. I think you'll go and you'll take. I also wanted to say that these are mounted on moving blankets, which is kind of apropos for us moving around the country or moving here. And there's little mirrors that are hung where you can see yourself as one of the people. Um, so I wanted to thank everybody. D R Greenway has been awesome to work with them, and Liz Olsen and uh, all the artists. So I want to offer if anybody would like to submit a question or a comment at this time, this would be a good thing to do with the chat function. And Judy could take a look and see if there's anything we want to answer right now. Judy?
Nothing yet.
Nothing yet. Everybody's stunned. It's
Like a
so
telephone. Yep,
wonderful.
we're waiting for the phone to ring. Yeah.
Come see the exhibit.
Come
Yeah.
see the exhibit. Yes, downstairs and upstairs. And there's this phone number to call, or you can always email me if you have any questions. We're offering like a little private tour. If you have a group of 8 or more that would like to come through, just let me know and we'll work that out, schedule that. But it's a lovely exhibit, and it has all different the way different artists came at the subject matter is always very interesting, and we'd love to see all of you at the poetry reading that will be in the galleries on Sunday starting at about 1:30 with a gallery walk and then a poetry reading that'll blow your mind. It's really fun. And I want you to thank you for participating, coming in, and working with us tonight. Okay, I think that's it.
This was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
ladies.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.